We are back from Thanksgiving break, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are back in the win column. They take down the Arizona Cardinals at home. They improve their record to 7-5. Now begins the playoff push, but today we're going to talk about some of the things that still need to be cleaned up. We're basically going to talk about the Bucs, where they are right now compared to where they want to be. What is it going to take for the 2025 Buccaneers to truly become contenders? We're about to talk about it.
I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up with the head. Intercepted. 30. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
20-17 is your final score from the Buccaneers Week 13 contest, the Simeon Rice Ring of Honor game. He was inducted into the team's Hall of Fame at halftime, and luckily they delivered a winning performance. But their first win in like a month, Evan. And what better time than now as we shift our gears towards the few remaining games this season, a lot of them division games, but the Buccaneers setting their sights on the postseason, looking to capture that NFC South title for another season in a row. They've got a red-hot Carolina Panthers team right behind them, so we're going to get into that and then some. But welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, as always, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish. How you feeling, my friend? We are winners once again.
Well, it is actually. It is technically over a month because the last Bucs win. Now, I mean, this does obviously, they had the bye week in that span, so that helps. But the last Buccaneers win was against the Saints, who actually are this week's opponent for the Buccaneers. But it was October 26th, and then they just beat the Cardinals on November 30th. So yeah, it was over a month that the Bucs had last won a football game. 3 straight losses. They in each of the last 2 previous seasons with basically the Baker Mayfield era, right? You can talk about the Todd Bowles era, but I think a lot of people still kind of think that 2022 season of like kind of still like the whole the Brady thing and stuff like that. So the Todd Bowles era and Baker Mayfield era, they've had a 4-game losing streak in each of those 2 seasons. Luckily, they were able to avoid that this season so far. I mean, hopefully if they go on another one, their season's over. So you got to avoid that. But they do avoid a 4-game losing streak for now. And was it perfect? No, but it's going to show up in the column as a W. So that's the only really thing that matters right now. And they needed a win. They simply needed that win. And now, from here on out, you got to play not necessarily perfect football, but like you got to play, and Mayfield said it before, but like playoff style football, because these games that they're going to get tight, right? And no matter who you're playing, right? Whether it was at the time, the 3-8 Cardinals, they're going to give you a fight, right? The Saints might give you a fight. The Falcons, they've been struggling. They might give you a fight. And obviously, yeah, the Panthers still got 2 games against them. That's going to decide this division, basically. So, yeah, we'll see. A lot of football still left to be played.
And, in true Buccaneers fashion, true Todd Bowles fashion, I think one of the biggest talking points from this win over Arizona is, unfortunately, all of the frustration that we are hearing from people about the defense, the execution.
We do have a $10 super chat. Didn't want to miss this. From Tusk_111 said, I can answer the question. It will require a coaching staff that can actually develop talent. Look at all the premium picks that haven't panned out here, especially on defense. Cheers, guys. So I think, he's sort of talking about, are the Buccaneers built for a playoff run, right? That's the title of today's episode, and that's his answer, right? And I think there's truth to some of that as well. Like, we can criticize, Jason Light or whatever and stuff like that for not finding certain guys, but also, like, your coaching staff sort of has to develop them at some point as well. And the Bucs staff, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, hasn't done the best job of that. So hopefully it can get better. But nonetheless, thank you very much for the $10.
Yeah, thank you, Tusk. And it's a great point because that's exactly where we're starting the conversation today. Again, you know, it's not a Buccaneers win if there's not a few people that are kind of frustrated about it at this stage of the game. I think that the overwhelming feeling, again, on both sides of the football, like you can point the finger wherever you want. We're going to kind of get into the specifics here. We're not going to do a ton of finger pointing, but we're just going to talk about what people are talking about, if you will. One of the biggest things is, excuse me. One of the biggest things for this Buccaneers defense right now, I think, is just more questions than answers. And you're starting to see the execution errors slip in, and you're starting to see, you know, they beat a 3-8 Arizona Cardinals team by 3 points. They had a 2-possession lead in the fourth quarter of this game, and we just kind of watched it trickle away because, unfortunately, the defense wasn't able to materialize much of a stop when they needed to. And at the end of the game, you did get the assist from special teams. We haven't given a lot of props to special teams this season, so let's make sure we do that. Riley Dixon kind of pinned Arizona deep. They had one timeout left. It was not very likely they were going to drive the length of the field. So that's a situation where you can trust your defense. But you can't do that against any of the teams that you lost to over the last month. And I think many would argue that if the Buccaneers played the way that they did against any team that they have lost to over the last month, they would most certainly lose, if not by more than they did. And then the questions are going to start to creep in. Some of the same things that we have talked about during this losing streak. You know, have they hit a ceiling with Todd Bowles? Like, what is the standard? Because you'd like to beat this team better, at least in a better fashion. But I feel like maybe that's a short-sighted look at things because there isn't a single win in the NFL, Evan, that is guaranteed. And I think that the Chicago Bears right now at 9-3 with the 1 seed in the NFC is proof of the parity happening in the NFL, just across the league this year. If the regular season ended today, the Kansas City Chiefs would not be in the postseason. Like, it's not just happening in the NFC. It is happening all over. So that doesn't make it an excuse, but it's like, where do we draw the line? You know what I'm trying to get at here?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And look, obviously, you look at the Cardinals coming in, and they're 3-8, and you're coming off 3 straight losses. You're back at home after 2 straight road games. You know, and the last road game where you got, embarrassed. And the Cardinals aren't a good football team. And yeah, I can see where for some fans it could be a little frustrating, right? That like, well, you won, but, right? Like you won, but you needed this and this and this. One thing about the Cardinals, though, and they're not a good football team, but like you look at their season
A lot of
and they
one
don't
possession.
they don't get, and it's against good teams.
Yeah.
So they lost to the 49ers in week 3, 16-15. They lost to the Seahawks in week 4, 23-20. Then, I mean, obviously the Titans are bad, but they lost to the Titans 22-21. That's 1 point, 3 points, and 1 point. They lost to the Colts by 4. They lost to the Packers by 4. They lost to the Jaguars by 3 in overtime. This Cardinals team doesn't really get blown out very often. And, and that's what I think you said about, no really guaranteed win in the NFL. And I think that's going to be a talking point for this week as well, because the Saints are a bad football team. But, like, it's not going to be a shock if the Saints, give a fight, right? Like, there's gonna be some fight there. These guys are still professional football players. They're still getting paid. And at this point, especially on bad football teams, you're trying to audition for a job next year, right? For a lot of these guys. So, we'll have to wait and see what type of tempo the Bucs play with, and hopefully they don't overlook the Saints, right? And obviously this isn't going to be a New Orleans preview. We'll get that later in the week, but just basically talk about the Cardinals. And I'm not saying that the Bucs, don't need to play better. They do. Right, they simply do, and this game wouldn't have been as close if the Bucs played better. But at the same time, it's not like the Cardinals have just been getting beaten down every single week and they've given up and shown no fight. Like, this team fights, and I think you sort of saw that, right? They hung around, and yeah, the Bucs went up. Chase McLaughlin makes that long field goal, and you're kind of like, okay, exhale, right? And then the Cardinals respond right away with a touchdown drive goes right down the field, and they're all of a sudden way back in it. Actually have the ball at the end with a chance to either tie or win the game. So I do think there's issues, and look, we'll talk about them. At the same time, though, I don't think it's like, oh my God, this just proves they're still awful and there's this and that because they only beat the Cardinals by 3 points. Because, quite frankly, I mentioned a couple of those teams. The Bucs beat the 49ers this year. The Bucs beat the Seahawks this year. Both those teams barely beat the Cardinals. And now, I mean, on the other side, you could say those other teams, right, the Seahawks and the 49ers, on the second try, they did blow out the Cardinals. But again, not every game in the NFL is going to be a blowout, right? That's just not how these games are played. And the Buccaneers, they are grateful for the win, but I'm sure they know they need to play better. Like, they obviously know that it's not going to fly, like you mentioned, against some better competition. And like, even against like, maybe not elite competition, but like the Carolina Panthers. Like, is that type of performance going to be able to win you that game? I don't know. I think you're going to have to play better. And there's certain aspects, on defense and offense. We talk about the defense, not being able to get a stop when it's 20-10. Well, the offense had an opportunity to seal it with a first down at the end there and not give the Cardinals the ball back, and they didn't do it. So the defense had to stand tall. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to take away what this Bucs team is giving us right now, and I want to pick your brain a little bit more about where you think this defense is, because one of the other ways that we're going to be looking at this, and you just have to be objective about it, because there are numbers, there are statistics that back this up. I think a lot of people, I've said this throughout the season, and I still kind of hold true. I think a lot of people are consistently overreacting to where this defense is right now. I know the execution errors are there. I know the tackling is bad. Like, that's something that we have to get out of the way.
On Sunday.
That was terrible. There was one run where I don't remember the name of the back for Arizona, but he missed like 4 tackles behind the line of scrimmage and was able to pick up a first down.
I think it was was it the one where Brissett dumped it down to either Bam Knight or somebody else, and then McCollum missed him, Dean missed him, and then somebody else missed him. He ended up getting the first down. It was like a 3rd and 3.
Yeah. Okay. That 100%. It was a crucial third down. It was an opportunity for them to get off of the field, and we saw 4 hats to the football, and not a single guy got him. Stuff like that is, obviously going to have to be fixed. But again, going back to my main point, I think one of the other ways that we can look objectively at where this Bucs defense is right now, the Cardinals came into this game averaging 22.6 points a game. And I'm not saying that that's, league shattering, but the Bucs only held them to 17. They took the ball away twice. They had 2 fourth down stops in the second half of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you take that at face value, you kind of want to think, oh, they should have won this game by more than 3 points. Or that should have definitely been enough to win. So, again, Evan, going back to Sunday's contest, and people are coming away from this game feeling frustrated. I think I actually saw something else about, that havoc stat that we've been talking about all season. The havoc for Jacoby Brissett was somewhere around 44-45% throughout that game, which is like top 3 in the NFL across any game. So again, like we talk about the pass rushers, they're missing a sexy pass rusher. This defense doesn't work anymore. I don't think that is a true statement, but I think a lot of the frustrations people are going to have coming out of this game are more than valid. We talked about the tackling again. There's some other things, but like, where's your head at with this Buccaneers defense? Because yes, there are some pieces missing, some things that need to be fixed, but I don't feel like they're as god awful as a lot of people would like you to believe. I mean,
there are some pieces missing. Like, they got Dean back this week, which is big. Morrison's still out. The biggest thing I think is, and this is for the entire team, Bowles sort of confirmed it. He was asked it on Sunday, pretty much said it was okay, but then confirmed it on Monday that they've come out unscathed of this game, right? There is no other major injuries. Also got Hassan Reddick back. I thought the most encouraging thing about the defense was the pressure. On Sunday, it felt like there was, multiple times where obviously they sacked Brissett a couple of times, but multiple times it felt like they were like a split second away, right? Like a split second from getting home. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. But the biggest area of concern from Sunday's game was the tackling, because there was a couple of times again where they had Brissett wrapped up and let him go. That third down that we talked about, there's a couple of runs that were a little uncharacteristic of like, okay, This guy's in a pile of dudes. Okay, it's going to be a 2-yard gain. All of a sudden, he breaks loose and he gets an extra 3 or 4 yards. That matters in the long run, right? When it's 1st and 10, there's a big difference between 2nd and 8 and 2nd and 5. Yeah, I do think there's things to improve upon the defense. I thought it was a step in the right direction. But I will say, like we talk about the turnovers. Well, the first turnover came when Arizona was driving down the field, right? Like Arizona took their first drive and really made it look pretty simple. So obviously it's good they forced a turnover and that sort of saved any points there, but it is like you'd like a better start, right? Especially after your defense is gonna be a big point of emphasis after Sunday Night Football. You'd like to have that better start, but they did settle in then. In the second half, they broke down a little bit more. But I thought in the first half, like they did a really nice job after that first drive of sort of like, okay, not really letting the Cardinals get much of anything. And it's not like you said the stats there. It's not like Arizona has a dreadful offense. Like, the team that they're going to play next, the Saints, that's one of the worst offenses in the NFL. That's a team where you can't let them go up and down. But Jacoby Brissett's been playing pretty good football for Arizona. So, yeah, I think where I'm at with the defense is like, I don't know. Like, I don't really have much faith against elite competition. Like, I just don't. Because every proof, every like piece of evidence that I have is like bad.
Yeah.
But I think they can do enough against these types of teams to get by on defense, force a couple of turnovers, make some plays there, get a 4th down stop or two, and win the game. And I know that's going to frustrate a lot of people, right? Because that's what they've been complaining about, that the Bucs do just enough to be, able to win a pretty poor division or be able to sneak into the playoffs and lose in the first round. I get that it's frustrating, but like that's where I think this defense is at right now.
Yeah. It feels like even with the good things that we have talked about, there's always room for improvement. And I think that it's tough as well to build a case in helping this defense when for 3 weeks in a row, one time on a primetime stage, to 3 straight MVP candidates, you're making their highlight reel. Like at the end of the year when they award MVP at the NFL honors, Matthew Stafford, Drake May, Josh Allen as all the candidates, and I'm sure maybe 1 or 2 other quarterbacks that hasn't officially been added to that list, but I don't know. I feel like it's going to be Stafford at this point.
Should be.
I think it should be. But like they're going to show highlights of these guys and their best plays are going to be against Tampa because it was too easy. So like, yeah, that's a glaring issue and it's something that can't be ignored. I think where I'm at, and this is a good transition point here, but I think where I'm at is, again, like all the good that we have said about this Buccaneers defense, I think that an elite edge rusher is nice. And I do think it is the move that Jason Light's going to have to make over the offseason. I think if they're going to get aggressive and do anything, that's kind of that's the hill I'm going to die on. I know. Don't look at me. Don't look at me like that.
I've been pounding the table for that for freaking 4 years.
But
join the party. It hasn't happened.
But one of the things, that you had talked about is, yeah, the pressure's nice, but there's so many plays where they're like right there.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, Hassan Reddick has done some good things this year, but he's not been that guy that we'd hoped he'd be. He's just not, right? He's not that force at the edge position to be the player that you were hoping he would be this season. And yet, somehow, the Bucs, I believe, are still top 10 in sacks. They're still a top 5 pressure rate team. The havoc stats that we talked about earlier, creating havoc for opposing quarterbacks. Like, they are a top 3 team, if I'm not mistaken, in that particular category. So
yeah, I think they're still top 3. They were 1 for a little bit, and then this rough stretch of defense kind of ruined it.
The pass coverage is something we'll talk about as well, just briefly. We won't dive into as much detail about it, but like Servassier Dennis, Levante David, yes, the linebacker position is probably going to have to be addressed. It may look very different this time.
It's going to look very different.
Yeah, Zion McCollum hasn't been good. He really, since the bye week, man, he just doesn't look like the same dude. And again, maybe it's good year or good player having a bad year, whatever. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But like, imagine how much better this defense would be just this season if they had like one guy. Who is that guy?
Mm-hmm.
They just don't. And we've talked about that time and time again. That was one of the topics I think that we hit the most heading into the season. And throughout training camp, even before that, like throughout the draft process, we were really, really, among many in the crowd who want to see better pass rush resources for this team. But we're not quite going to dive into like a David level conversation where we are, what do you think of Jason Light and his talent acquisition, that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to have that conversation on this show because we have plenty of other things to talk about. But one of the things I do want to bring up, and a good transition for us, is killer instinct. That is a term that we have heard thrown around, especially by the Buccaneers quarterback a couple of weeks ago. Basically called the team out and said that they are lacking killer instinct. And they followed that up with some of their worst football of the season for a few weeks. So, I mean,
really motivating stuff.
Yeah, they responded well, clearly. But again, they are back in the win column this week, 7-5. Not a terrible place to be. We're going to draw comparisons every time stuff like this happens. This team is not the 2020 Buccaneers, but the 2020 Super Bowl champion Buccaneers were 7-5 at one point. Doesn't mean anything for this year, but again, I don't know. It's fun stuff. It's a little trivia pointer. You might be able to get some kind of point.
A little bit of different vibes.
Right, yeah, a little bit. But going back to the killer instinct, Bucs win against a 3-8 Arizona team 20-17. At one time, they had a 17-3 lead. Another time in the second half, they had a 20-10 lead. So it's like, when you look at the 2021 Buccaneers, for example, like when they were firing on all cylinders, they would have won this game by like 40 points.
Sure.
Even beating the Saints before the bye week.
No, yeah, it wasn't pretty. If you remember, I mean, that game was, what was the final? 23-3.
They beat them by 20 points, but they should have beat them by 50.
The offense scored 16.
Yeah.
Because Anthony Nelson had that pick 6. So yeah, like it wasn't. They haven't really played. The last really good football game they played was probably the San Francisco game. Like that's probably it, and that is almost 2 months ago.
Yeah, that is one of the things where, again, when you look around this Bucs team and you kind of say, like, this is an area where they have to be better. The killer instinct is something that's going to be brought up a lot because on both sides of the ball, I think you could say that against Arizona, there were times throughout that game where they just look flat out uninspired. And like that kind of sucks because that isn't something I feel like we've been saying a lot about this team, especially this season. Now, again, they know at this point they control their own destiny. They have been in this situation before. They are professional athletes in the National Football League. Like, they know what they have to do. So it's not like I'm concerned about, is Baker or Todd losing the locker room? Like, that's not really where it's going. It's just more so, what do you think is the biggest contributor to that lack of killer instinct? Is it the injuries again, like still trying to get healthy at the right time here, and they are, but it's like I think there's multiple things you can point to and say, like, yeah, this has got to get better. This just hasn't been where it was before. And I think injuries are going to pop up in every single one of those conversations, but like what do you think is maybe the most glaring issue right now?
My thing is, and this is the bigger concern for me because we talk about injuries, but most of your injuries are on the offensive side of the ball, right? And obviously they got Bucky Irving back. Chris Godwin seems to be, looking more and more like Chris Godwin. That's good. Possibly, a new report came out Sunday morning. Jalen McMillan got cleared by a neck specialist to be able to begin practicing. Still probably a ways away from playing. I mean, this guy literally has not played football since August, so I would pump the brakes on him playing anytime soon, but maybe he comes back for the final 2 or 3 games, and then potentially Mike Evans, who they technically said could return this week. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe next week against Atlanta, but this week seems like a stretch. So on offense, sure. My biggest concern is the defensive side of the ball, where you talk about uninspired, and at times I thought, I saw, and I'm not saying these guys are like loafing, but like I saw, like at times when we talk about the tackling, an uninterested group. Like it looked like they weren't interested in making some of the plays you had to make. Like the effort wasn't really the same. And that's like you mentioned, that's hasn't really been a thing under Todd Bowles, really. They One of the reasons I think Bowles has kept his job is because of how much the players like him and respect him and want to play for him. Because like if your locker room hates you
Oof.
and you're going 9-8 and losing in the first round every year, all right, well, something's gonna be done eventually, right? Like, even though, yeah, you're making the playoffs, but like, if nobody likes you, one of two things is gonna happen: either they're gonna fire you before that, or the bottom's just gonna fall out,
I don't
right?
know,
And one
man.
or two things is gonna go wrong, and everybody hates each other then, right?
They're still in
I
business
don't.
over in Pittsburgh, so I mean,
I don't. I think. Well, I think people they respect Tomlin though.
yeah,
Like it's
they
not. I
you
don't think. I don't think the players hate Tomlin.
you have to, but he is
Um.
he is the modern day Tony Dungy. I tell you what.
Well, or yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. Just saying, like, if Mike Tomlin's a great coach. Like, I think he is a great coach, but like, he is like everybody talks about, like, oh, Todd Bowles or whatever. You want to talk about a guy who's conservative? Like, Mike
Yeah,
Tomlin is as conservative as you can be. If there's a 4th and 1 on the 50-yard line, you're punting. Like there's no doubt about it. Like you are punting that football. So a lot of people complain about Bowles for being like, oh, he's passive and he's conservative and this and that. Like you can't do that. Like, no, watch a Steelers game. Because the decisions made there are brutal sometimes and drive Steelers fans up a friggin' wall. But and again, I don't think this defense is, uninterested or quitting on Bowles. I don't think that. But if you're playing these better teams, like you can't, like the Carolina game in 2 or 3 weeks, is that going to be one of the biggest games in like the Bowles tenure? Like it could be.
I bet
Like
it.
that game, depending on how the game. So here's the scenario for the Buccaneers right now. It's quite simple. You mentioned they control their own destiny. They truly do. If they beat the Saints on Sunday, and then they beat the Falcons on Thursday night, which Thursday night football, you're gonna be wearing the creamsicles, and it's Kirk Cousins back there. Not a great recipe. But if those two things happen, that next Sunday is against Carolina in Carolina. It's very simple. They win, they clinch the NFC South. So literally, if they win their next 3 games, they win the NFC South. It's that there's nothing that the Panthers can do anymore. The Panthers can win every single game except that one against Tampa, and if they lose, it's over. So yeah, like they control their own destiny, and I would like to see a little bit more attention to detail, or specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And again, that's where it's more concerning for me because the defense doesn't really have those like, oh, injuries that we got this guy out and this guy and this guy and this guy. There's been a couple of times, obviously, you lost Cancey for most of the year, and he could be back. I'm personally not counting on him being back, but could be back. You lost Dean for a game or two. You lost McCollum here and there. But, like, other than that, like, you haven't really had many injuries. And I still see a unit that leaves a little bit to be desired for me. So that's probably my biggest concern right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that again, the tackling thing is just kind of, you don't want to dive too much into it and start, tinfoil hat. Oh, this is happening because you have to take things as you're given. But like, it was definitely a red flag. Just something that you don't see very often. So again, these guys know what's at stake, and they know it has to be fixed.
Yeah.
As we move,
And also in the chat, Mook Tattoo says they're missing David Walker. Also, I like David Walker, but at the end of the day, he's a pass rusher, a 5th-round pick who would have been what their 3rd or 4th pass rusher. Like again, I like David Walker. It's one of my favorite picks they made, but is he really doing that much to change the defense? I'm not sure.
yeah, I like him a lot too, and I just don't think it's fair. On top of that, I don't think it's fair to expect that one guy to kind of, step in as a rookie and be the piece. I think he
No,
would
he
have
was
been
a 5th-round pick.
yeah, I mean, I think he was shaping up to be a gnarly contributor. I think
No, I think so too.
we've talked a lot this season about both of the Elijah Simmons, a little less of Elijah Simmons these last few weeks, but like Elijah Roberts is, someone who has made more plays this season than I think many people expected from him. And that was just because of injury. Like that was next man up. And then you see that he's got a little bit going on there, and that was an exciting development. I think we would have seen the same thing with David Walker because, yeah, he's a very likable pick. But I don't think things would have been drastically different for this pass rush if he was available. But yes, the injuries are going to be a concern. Let's talk about this offense. We've talked enough about the defense. We've talked about Todd Bowles. I want to talk about this Buccaneers offense, and I want to talk about some of the good things. Oh, I just got a really cool text. I want to talk about some of the good things from this win. And we've talked a lot about injuries this season, and some of the biggest things from Sunday's win, especially on the offensive side of the ball where they need this kind of firepower, was the return of running back Bucky Irving and wide receiver Chris Godwin. Bucky, of course, 17 carries, 61 yards, averaging 3.6 a tote, and he did find the end zone. He also caught some passes as well, 2 for 20, so showing that dynamic ability catching passes out of the backfield. No, he didn't get over 100 scrimmage yards on the ground, but for a guy who I didn't think was going to get 20 touches in his first game back, did a pretty damn good job, and he was the most productive runner on the ground for the Buccaneers, and I'm glad to see him hopefully, back in a place where he can thrive and just enjoy what he does. So, that's a guy who loves playing ball, and it's a guy you love to see back out there. But I really do think the bigger story here, because we knew Bucky was going to be effective when he came back, the bigger story is the return of the Rod God, man, Chris Godwin Jr. 3 receptions for 78 yards and 31-yarder, 20-plus yarder later on in the game. He did have the one drop.
Explosive plays, though.
Right, but that's what you expect from Chris Godwin, and
that's what they need.
Yeah,
this offense is lacking right now.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. But to see it come from Chris Godwin of all players after everything he has been through, to come back this season, rehab the broken ankle and then deal with the fibula injury on the other foot. That was the frustrating part, is that it was just an entirely new thing. And he's able to overcome it, come back into the season, and look like that guy. Now, consistency is key, but I'm glad that as of right now, we have that guy back in our tool shed more so than we did against Seattle and Philadelphia, because he was playing in those games, but he did not look like Chris Godwin, and I hope that this trend continues.
Yeah, and then obviously he came back last week, but that game got out of hand, and then the Bucs were like, okay, let's just whatever. But I thought Godwin looked outside of that drop. I thought he looked really good. And this offense clearly needed it. They needed Bucky Irving though too. And look, I don't mind. They've said it forever, right? They're gonna ride the hot hand, and they felt that Bucky Irving was the guy that was running the football the best. They might have maybe preferred he play a little less in his first game back, but hey, if the dude's having success, he's having success. You're not going to take him out then. So he was able to find the end zone, and that was good. Chris, should have found the end zone, which would have made the day a little bit better, but it is nice to have him back. And is he going to be what he was last year pre-injury? No, I don't think that's fair to expect right now, because he's missed most of this season. So there's going to be some more ramp up here. But it was nice to see, some big plays. And again, this offense, I think the two concerns for this offense right now are, for me, they're in too many third downs. They're just simply in too many third down situations, third and long specifically. It's because they've had real trouble winning on first down. It always seems like it's, you end up in a 2nd and 9 or a 2nd and 8. And then if you throw the ball, you throw an incomplete pass, all of a sudden you're in a 3rd and 8. You got to stay out of those third and longs. And then also, this past, since really the Detroit game, I guess, the explosive plays haven't really been there at all on offense. They had a couple in Buffalo, New England, not really, and then obviously the Rams, definitely not. And they had a couple in this game, right? Specifically, a lot of them were to Godwin. The 131-yarder. That was a great pass by Mayfield. I thought it was his best pass the entire day, actually. That's what they need more of, right? It just seems like it's too hard to put these drives together and put these, 8, 9, 10 play drives. That's hard, right? That takes a lot of execution. So I think they need that explosiveness, and they got some of it with Bucky Irving, and they got some of it back with Chris Godwin. So hopefully they can get Mike Evans back soon, starting looking, a little bit more into form. And hopefully Godwin can. It was again, if he catches that pass in the end zone, you're talking about a really good day. So hopefully, just clean that up, and that's something that the whole offense needs to clean up. I think it's the small things, right? Baker Mayfield said after the game that he felt this was the closest they've been, right, in a long time to being that offense that they're used to being, and I sort of agree. I actually thought that both offenses, the Arizona offense looked better than their box score indicated, and I thought the Bucs offense looked better than their box score indicated. I thought there could have been more points scored on both sides for both teams. So I do think there is obviously a few things that Godwin dropped in the end zone. The Bucs had to settle for 3. That's a touchdown. If not, Emeka Ibuka drops a pass right in the opening drive on 3rd down. It would have been a 15-yard gain, put the Bucs in a field goal range. Bucs had a couple of tough penalties. So yeah, I do think they are close, but I also think it's going to take some more time because we're talking about these pieces coming back. Well, you had to work in Godwin back. You had to work in Irving back. Well, if Mike Evans comes back, you have to work him back in. So I do think it's a little bit of like because really they haven't played together, right? Like this version of the Bucs offense with Emeka Ibuka and Tej Johnson and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving, they just haven't really spent much time together. So hopefully they're able to figure that out sooner rather than later, and hopefully it's in this stretch here, before the postseason.
Yeah, one of the things I'm going to be watching closely on offense too over these next few weeks is really something I think is going to help them out a ton down the stretch. And that is the immediate impact of not only having a Bucky Irving back in your run game, but Ben Bredeson out there as well. Listen, I don't want to overrate Ben Bredeson, but the fact of the matter is the Bucs for a long time this season just do not have people movers on the interior offensive line. Graham Barton's got to keep hitting the weight room, man. He's, I know I don't have room to talk compared to these offensive linemen who could probably eat me for lunch, but like he's been getting bullied this year. Mike Jordan's been struggling. Dan Feeney was fine, but like he wasn't commandeering and just powering guys, in the run game the way that a guy like Bredeson has shown he has the ability to do. Tristan Wirfs has that athletic ability. Cody Malk has that athletic ability, and unfortunately, he's
Tristan Wirfs does. Yeah, he caught a touchdown.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that here in a second. Don't worry, because I'm very excited about that. Now, funny enough, I got a story about it, but yeah, Luke Edeke's got that ability, so it's like getting these guys back. I think is going to it's going to pay dividends as the games keep coming here. They close out the regular season. They get back to what works on the offensive side of the ball. I think the run game, I hope the run game can become a little bit more of an asset for them than what it has been these last few weeks, because Grizzard's been getting creative with the pieces that he's had, but he hasn't had Bucky Irving. And now, some of these play designs that they were given to a Sean Tucker or Rashad White may work a little bit better if you're feeding the football to number 7.
One thing really quick about the run game, I wanted them to run the ball a little bit more than they did, in certain situations.
Yeah.
On Sunday, and I can't remember specific ones, but there's just a couple of times where I just felt like they should have ran the ball, and instead they sort of got a little pass happy. But I mean, just look at the box score. I mean, Bucky had 17 carries, which I mean is a good number, but Rashad White and Sean Tucker combined 4 carries. I mean, I would like to see that number higher. Which again would include running the football more. But I mean, the Bucs also Baker didn't even throw the ball 30 times, so it's not like they were throwing the ball a bunch. It just sort of happened that way. But yeah, I would like to see them get involved a little bit more. We've talked about it a bunch. I think Bucky Irving is a good player, but I don't think Bucky Irving is a bell cow, give it to him 30 times a game type of running back. And obviously, yes, he didn't get the ball 30 times this game, but I think he works best in this offense. And I think everybody does. Works best in this offense when it is you get a little bit of Bucky Irving, then you get a little bit of Rashad White, and then maybe sprinkle in a little Sean Tucker in maybe a short yardage situation or something, just to give the defense a different look. I think that's where this Bucs running offense, I think that's where they thrive when it's not just one guy. So hopefully, they're able to get back to that and have more success with that. Even though Sean Tucker, it is playing the Saints, so like Sean Tucker might need to get more carries.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Getting another red zone weapon back for this offense is a big key too. We've talked a ton this season about red zone execution, decision making, play calling, play design, And like, it's tough to do some things down there as easily as you normally would when you don't have a Mike Evans, or I guess more presently, you don't have a Chris Godwin. You don't have a Bucky Irving, and the Bucs have lacked that for the last month plus. So, going to be interesting to watch that develop here over the next few weeks. Let's wrap things up with the quarterback. Man, we're having another objective conversation about Baker Mayfield, and before we dive into it, I want to say that Baker's my guy. Baker is still the quarterback that I love in Tampa. I cannot remember another quarterback that I have loved watching more than Baker Mayfield. And like, yes, we can. Don't make that face. But like, that's a given, right? And
I think winning a Super Bowl seems pretty fun.
Listen, we only got 3 years of Tom Brady. We are on year number 3 of Baker Mayfield, and we're probably going to get a few more. So with that being said,
not according to Vikings Twitter. Do you see that?
Yeah, what the hell,
It's
dude?
weird.
They're on drugs.
Really weird.
They're on drugs. You know, they got their mock draft machines out. They're doing what they can to try and fix that over there. Their guy Kevin O'Connell really showed his ass and thought he was a quarterback guru that he is.
They got 9. Anyway else.
All right, let's get into Baker
for people that don't know, there was a Vikings like Twitter account or whatever that like was like quote tweeted a thing about like quarterbacks or whatever. And they quote tweeted with like a gif of Baker Mayfield, and they were like, "Oh, we're hearing reports out of Tampa that like, yeah, no."
There's a lot of fun reports going on. There was another report from some wannabe page on Twitter that said things are done between the Bucs and wide receiver Mike Evans, and that he's going to be looking for a new contract elsewhere next season, and this and that, and it was pretty fun.
I don't even know if Mike Evans is going to play football next season. I don't think he knows.
Yeah, you ain't lying. All right, let's get into Baker. The point of the matter being, I don't think Baker has played very well over the last month, and with that being said, he has done some things well. I'm glad to see that he is more comfortable running the football again. I think he did a good job evading some pressure against Arizona. Good job breaking containment, making plays out of structure. If he had to do that, he's got that ability. But there is a pattern that we have seen, and I don't really know where we're at. I just feel like he's missing guys. Like the long and short of it is, I feel like he is missing throws that he should not be missing. I feel like by week 14 of the season, he should know how to hit Tez Johnson downfield, because he's had to make do with Tez Johnson for the last 2 months. And Tez has been making plays, and like, yeah, he's a rookie, and yeah, he's tiny as hell, but he missed him on a touchdown against Detroit. Just flat out missed him again against Arizona. Emeka Egbuka has kind of had his own drop issues this season, and that's kind of a short conversation too. You can say he's a rookie or whatever. He's got to catch the ball. That's becoming a bit of a trend. But like, the other half of his targets that weren't caught, I feel like Baker just missed them. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, because again, Baker is getting tools back in his toolbox here. He's getting some reinforcements that he hasn't had this season. He's been playing through injury, and he's also had a defense that has just been porous, over the last month when you look at these big time games. So I'm not like ready to move on from Baker. That's not really what the conversation is. But I think when you look at the way he was throwing the football, playing with confidence, and attacking downfield in the first 6 weeks of the season, like even before the bye week and after the bye week, I just don't think he's been the same guy. And the offensive line, the injuries, all of that's going to factor into it. But when you look at Baker, when you look at him throwing the football, and let's talk about the things that he does well too, but like, do you also agree that he's just kind of a step off? Like,
yes, but at the same time, I think he looked better this week than he has like in a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, I thought the offense as a whole, looked a little bit better than they have. I think I go back to a couple of things, right? Um, you have, I guess, that first drive, Mecca, it's a 3rd and 10. Mecca Ibuka drops the ball. Would have been a 15, 16-yard gain. Keeps the chains moving. Would have put the Bucs in the field goal range. That's on the first drive. Keeps that drive going. I think that changes things. And we talked about it earlier. Chris Godwin drops the ball in the end zone. That took 7 points off the board. The Bucs had to settle for 3. So Baker was 18 of 28. You take those 2 drops, you put him, then he's 20 of 28 and he has 2 touchdowns. So, and who knows if that drive continues to keep going. To Emeka Ibuka, who knows what ends up happening there. So I'm not overly concerned because I do think he is starting to get back to like what makes him effective or most effective, which is like that sort of that backyard football thing that we talk about. And I think you saw it in Buffalo when he was using his legs. And then obviously last week didn't really get a chance. And again, that whole game just sort of got thrown out. That's just like a burn the tape type deal. And then, this past week used his legs not often, which I mean I didn't expect him to because of the injury, right? Because of that shoulder. But used it enough. He ended up sliding and stuff. So, trying to protect himself a little bit there as well. Thought the pass protection held up pretty well for the most part. So I mean, yeah, when he did miss guys though, like he missed the Mecca, I think it was the third down, late in the game there that might have iced it. He missed him just a little bit high there, and he admitted that in the post game press conference. So I'm not overly concerned. He needs to be better, but at the same time, I do think what I saw on Sunday was a better version, and I'm more so optimistic than anything that like, okay, he's out of this sort of rough stretch now, and I think he's slowly starting to get out of it.
Yeah.
So I think if the Bucs can sort of stop beating themselves, some penalties. Obviously, I didn't agree with a lot of the calls. There was a holding call on Tristan Wirfs that wasn't really a hold. The block on Tej Johnson took away the Rashad White touchdown. It didn't really matter because I think the Bucs ended up scoring on that drive anyway. But like, yeah, the Bucs scored 3 touchdowns on that drive, right?
Ball don't lie, brother. Ball don't lie.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think again, was it perfect? No, but I think we're slowly starting to get back. And will we ever get to? I don't know, right? Like what he was on a heater,
Dude.
weeks, 5 and 6, like really looking really, really good. I don't know if we're gonna get back to that this season, but I do think there's a middle ground between like what he was showing like against. Yeah, I mean Buffalo was pretty much like Sean Tucker, right? Like it wasn't like Baker played fine, but like it wasn't great. And then obviously against the Rams was brutal, and the Patriots was eh. Even against New Orleans, he was like, not really that great. So I think there's a middle ground there, and I think we're starting to get to that middle ground with Baker. And I think as the pieces come back, get healthier, and they start playing more together again, and start figuring out the things that they do well on offense when all the pieces are there, I think it's going to help everybody out.
Yeah, I think we're getting over the hump of the injuries, right? It feels like, hopefully, I mean, knock on wood, it feels like the worst is behind us. And we talked earlier as well about the effectiveness of having a Bucky Irving back in the lineup, of having a Chris Godwin back in the lineup. Just, not 1, but 2 more targets. The red zone targets, the red zone ability. Apparently, Tristan Wirfs is a big red zone target for us now. And, like, I hope, I don't want to say I hope that trend continues because defenses are probably going to be able to sniff it out, but that was pretty damn fun. And Tristan Wirfs gets his first career NFL touchdown.
First career NFL catch.
He has more touchdowns this season than our entire tight end room.
They still don't have a touchdown. That's right. They still don't have a touchdown.
Yeah, they don't. And, I do think that the tight end usage is another debate in itself. But I think when we talk about the efficiency of like a Baker Mayfield, having these weapons back is going to help. Being healthier is going to help. I think it's hard to argue against, an oblique injury and sprain to the severity that he had against LA. Who knows how long he had been playing through some uncomfortability up in that shoulder area, but like that's probably going to affect your accuracy just a little bit, so I don't think it's far-fetched to attribute the injuries to a big thing there. But having these guys back in his toolkit not only opens things up for Baker Mayfield, but it opens things up a little bit for Josh Grizzard. And like that's where again a lot of the conversations are going to go hand in hand with like Baker's not playing this well this year, Grizzard's not doing a good job of drawing some things up for him. And like I think that multiple things can be true, especially when we evaluate Josh Grizzard up until this point of the season, but like one of the major talking points this week is like first down, what they're doing on first down. I thought Grizzard had been kind of creative against Arizona on first down. The Bucs just weren't executing. Yeah. Like Baker either wasn't hitting his guy or, you don't really get the push up front that you were hoping for. Like I don't, I can't pinpoint the exact issues, but I can tell you that the lack of consistency is from a lot of the things that we just mentioned. But with guys getting back into the lineup, with players getting healthier, with your quarterback of all people starting to feel more comfortable and healthy in the pocket, I think, like you said, we're going to start to see some shades of that guy we saw early on in the season, because by now nobody is 100%. And I think it is a very safe assumption that Baker Mayfield is not playing anywhere close to 100% healthy right now. So I do think, let me ask you this before we wrap up here, though. The tight end usage, K. Dotton had not a great stretch there against LA, and Devin Culp has yet to see the field. I'm not saying that Devin Culp is a guaranteed superstar, but like we got Payne Durham a catch against Arizona. We're getting him on the field a little bit more. He's kind of being worked into the lineup. Devin Culp is very much on this roster, and a lot of people were very happy about that, especially seeing him kind of be a contributor for the team at the very tail end of last season. He made at least one big play, but it's like they're just not really doing anything. Like, is it a product of the system? Is it more so just kind of the way the cookie crumbles for the Bucs right now and everything else? Or, are you concerned about the tight end usage, if you will?
I mean, I don't know. You were talking to a guy who's not a big fan of the tight end room anyway.
Right.
So, like, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think it's like they don't have like the supreme talent in the tight end. And I'm not saying like they have to have an elite tight end, but like they don't have the best talent in the room, and also maybe the usage isn't the best. And I mean, we saw it like the Bruce Arians offense, right? Like, they involved the tight end because like Gronkowski was that good. But like the Bruce Arians offense, the tight end wasn't a big deal, right? Like, and we saw it become a little bit more of a big deal with like Canales, and last year with Cohen was at times, especially when Evans and Godwin were out last year. But I don't know. I said it last week. Like, I'm kind of over Kate Otten, like
Yeah.
I'm ready to sort of move on, like try something different. Because these tight ends are just not really giving you much. And like, yeah, why not give Devin Culp? No, Peyton Durham, I think he had a catch. It was a first down.
Yep.
So like, I mean, yeah, like whatever. But like, yeah, if they're not giving you really anything, why don't you try out Devin Culp and see if he gives you a little something different, right? I do think the Bucs will be looking at some different options in the tight end room next year. I don't know about if like K. Dotton or whatever's in danger of not being back or not. I think they would like to bring him back, but I also think like they're not gonna pay him a ton of money. So we'll see how that goes. So the tight end's another room though. Like we talk about linebacker and stuff. Tight end's a room that could look a lot different. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not overly concerned, but like also it's sort of because I'm like, I'm not sure they have the dudes there. So,
they have the dudes. I mean, Tristan Wirfs tight end 1, buddy.
I mean, yeah.
Really fun.
You said the stat. That was it. I mean,
one catch, one touchdown.
More touchdowns in the entire room.
Funny story about that Tristan Wirfs touchdown to wrap things up. Is we all were pleasantly surprised to bear witness to Tristan Wirfs finding the end zone. I was watching that game up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. My girlfriend and I and her family, her brother had his 21st birthday over the weekend. So we went and partied it up over the weekend, spent a long weekend after Thanksgiving up there, and had a great time. So that was why we had no live post-game show. I know we didn't really officially put anything out there, but it was Thanksgiving. Everybody was full from the food. I'm like, they're not going to remember anyways. So, So
I
anyways,
think people were sick of the Bucs at that point anyway.
right, yeah. I didn't think anybody wanted the Bucs to ruin their Thanksgiving any more than they already had over the last 3 weeks. So, we kind of mentally moved on from the Rams game. We were looking ahead to Arizona. Anyways, we were watching the game, my girlfriend Taylor and I, at this place called Puckers, which is a sports bar on the Strip. And I was actually very nervous. I had to call ahead and make sure they were going to be showing the Tampa game because they were like, yeah, we're going to show the Panthers game and the Titans game and the, I don't remember what other game was on. The Houston game. We'll try and get the Tampa game on for you. Oh, okay. So we're watching the game. And the Tristan Wirfs.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Right, yeah. We're watching the game. And the Tristan Wirfs touchdown happens. And I must have been the only person in the bar watching the game because I was the only person who just lost their shit. You could not say anything to me for about 25 seconds because I was stunned. We all love a big man touchdown. We remember the Vita Vea touchdown against Atlanta all those years ago. And what was that, 2019?
2019, I think.
Yeah. Crazy. That's almost 7 years ago. That really sucks. But that was a fun moment. And, it was a little bit disheartening that I couldn't celebrate with anybody because I was losing my marbles and nobody cared. They were watching, granted they were watching an instant classic in Carolina with the LA Rams, but it was, I don't know, it was fun, I guess. It's not that fun to be out of town watching your team unless you've got other people to do it with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely get it. But it also explains why you were the only ones who were reacting to it. Because in Tennessee, why would anybody else really care about Tampa, Arizona?
Yeah, nobody was there to watch the 1-10 Titans. That's for damn sure. Where were you when Tristan Wirfs found the end zone?
I think we're all gonna remember that, right?
Yeah.
I was in the comfort of my own home, so it's always cool, whenever you see something like that because those guys, they just don't, I think even I forget who said it in the post game. So I forget what somebody said, it wasn't Baker and it wasn't Wirfs, but somebody had said the offensive lineman, they don't really get their name called, much on broadcasts, right? Unless they're doing really bad or it's a big issue. That's one of the few times they always talk about, if you don't hear an offensive lineman's name, that's a good thing. So yeah, it was cool to see Wirfs get in the end zone. Like I said, his first career touchdown was first career catch also in the NFL. He said his last touchdown actually came in high school. He blocked the punt and returned it back for a touchdown. So it's been a long time since Tristan Wirfs found the end zone, and that was the Bucs' first score first touchdown of the game. So yeah, it was a pretty cool thing to see.
I think we'll kind of complete the cycle here if we see him get a snap at running back because I don't remember if it was last year or the year before or maybe the year before, but do you remember that he recovered the fumble and picked up the ball and scampered for 6-7 more yards, kind of stiff-armed a guy? And I don't think that play ended up counting because there was some rule about he couldn't advance the football. But he was prepared. You could see it in his eyes. You could see it in his body language. Vita Vea was a running back in high school. So I think that these big guys could definitely surprise you. That would be fun. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for today's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. Had close to 100 people in here at one point just for a pop-up show on a Tuesday night. We greatly appreciate you guys hanging out with us and talking Bucs. Thank you, Tusk, for the super chat to kick things off earlier tonight. Your kind donation to the Wendy's Fund is greatly appreciated, my friend. Thank you for watching the channel. Shout out to everybody in chat. Steinbauer Sports, Mikey B, Seminole Boy, Richard T from the West Coast. Aaron DeBuck. That's a pretty good screen name. You done messed up now, Aaron. D-Rays 813, our good buddy Mikey Kelly, Zach Ridden 79, and anybody else that I may be missing. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with us. Subscribe to the channel for more great Tampa Bay Buccaneers content. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show, and of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. You can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. And check out his written work at bucksnation.com. What have you got in the hopper this week, my friend?
Yeah, so this week going to be continuing the Q&As. So going to be talking with the Saints writer or the designated Saints writer from the Saints SB Nation website, just to get a little bit of a closer insight on the Saints. I know the Bucs played them recently, but there's been a couple of obviously a quarterback change. The Bucs they started Spencer Rattler against the Bucs, then they went to Tyler Shuck. They've stuck with Tyler Shuck for now, so it will be Tyler Shuck against the Bucs. So just talking about a couple of things, getting a bit of a closer look at the Saints there and what they've been going on, in the past few weeks. So stay tuned for that on BucsNation.com and all that fun stuff.
Heck yeah, my friend. Looking forward to that. You can find myself, Instagram, and Twitter at Redicus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. I said earlier in the show that I got a cool text message, and I guess this is the tease for what we're doing on the Rondé Barber show tomorrow, but he texted me something that we're going to be covering in a segment tomorrow. He is going to go over his Mount Rushmore of NFL corners, excluding himself and Deion Sanders.
And
then
Deion, why Deion?
I guess that's most people's go-to answer. You know
Okay.
what I mean? It's kind of the thought process behind that. And then he's also going to give us his quarterback Mount Rushmore of the guys that he played against, excluding Tom Brady. Because again, like
it would be on everybody's.
Yeah. So there's a tease.
Although I have a feeling of one guy who's definitely gonna be on there. But
yeah, I hear that.
Can you guess the name I'm thinking? I think it's kind of obvious.
Yes.
Because of like when Barber played, like if it's not Tom Brady, it's
yeah. I think you and everybody else can find out on Wednesday's brand new episode of the Rondé Barber Show. Please check that out.
Let's just actually ask him what it is now. He can tell us here now, and then we can just
let me FaceTime him real quick and bother him. I'll disrupt his night. Check that out. Going to be really cool stuff. Going to be breaking down the Buccaneers win against Arizona and looking ahead as well. That comes out every Wednesday. Just look up the Rondé Barber Show. But that is our show. We will see you in the next show. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We will see you in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.